Bruce Parsons here, and today we're going to talk very briefly about what your responsibilities are if you've been in an accident and you have to report it to the police. We're talking about, obviously, an automobile accident. First things first, always check on your passengers. Always check on the people in the other vehicles, anybody that's been involved in an accident. Always render what assistance you can, because at the end of the day, everything else is a car, everything else is property. It's not as important as people, and everything else can be replaced. Once you're satisfied that everybody's been looked after, whether or not you've gone to the hospital, whether or not anything else is going on, you're going to have to speak to an officer or make a report at the Collision Reporting Center. Sometimes you'll speak to the officer at the accident scene, sometimes you'll make a report at the hospital, and sometimes you'll be writing a report at the Collision Reporting Center. And it's always problematic as to what you have to say. What information do you have to share? Well, with the other driver at the side of the road, you have to share your license information, and you have to share your insurance information. With an officer, you're required under the Highway Traffic Act to give a statement about what actually happened. Not quite. I guess you could identify yourself and provide the bare facts about your vehicle, registration, and insurance. You also, as a practical matter, are required to report what happened as an accident. Under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, you don't want to be saying anything that incriminates yourself. And these two rights conflict, obviously. How do you reconcile them? Well, if you make a statement and you don't reconcile them, the courts normally will reconcile them by allowing your statement to be admitted and used against you if there are any charges laid against you. Officers are told, normally if there's an accident and they attend, regardless of the circumstances, there's going to be a charge laid. Not always, but in a large percentage of cases, regardless of conditions, regardless of what else is going on. So, there's going to be a charge laid, and regardless of what the weather circumstances are and other things going on, you may or may not be getting one. The only evidence that's against you may very well come down to your own statement. How do you keep that statement out when you're compelled by statute under the Highway Traffic Act to give that statement? Simple. When you give your statement, or when you write your statement, make sure you say, this is not a voluntary statement. What you're essentially having to get across in your statement is, you understand you are required by statute to give a statement to the officer or to write down a statement about what happened, and you are not making a voluntary statement. It is a compelled statement under statute. By saying this is not a voluntary statement, that's what you're saying. It's a simple statement. This is not a voluntary statement. And that should be enough to allow somebody like me or yourself to defend you should a charge be laid. In some instances, it will keep the charge from being laid, because anybody assessing the fact, particularly at collision reporting centers, will understand what that means and say, we have no evidence without that statement. So, first, assist everybody at the scene. Render what assistance you can, most important. And yeah, I know that sounds silly, but when there's an accident, you're in shock. Keep that, if you have a list, put that at the top of it, because when we're in shock, run through the checklist. So check on everybody, make sure everybody's okay. 2, if you have to give a statement, make sure above your signature, this is not a voluntary statement. That's what you put in there. If you're talking to the officer, you say, this is not a voluntary statement. Make sure that goes in there. Bruce Parsons, thanks. Happy motoring.